For further instructions, check the other side of the Fragments of Silicon.
Right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon Daylight Interviews. All right, joining us this week is Paul of Grizzly Games.
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Right, how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the games, the studio, and all of that business. And we start by asking this particular question. What got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Well, good question, actually. Has to be something in my childhood, I guess. Just playing video games as a child. I don't really remember what was the first thing that got me interested into video games. It was just, I guess, what you were doing as a kid, right? Hanging around at friends' places, playing video games. So yeah, I always loved playing video games, and then at some point growing up, I kind of figured that I want to try and make a career out of it. It has been not exactly a straight path from there on, because for the longest time I didn't really know that you could make it an actual career. So I actually wanted to study sports after high school, and then figured out that I didn't want to do that, but then did a quick detour into computer science, then realized that that also was not the best path to get into video games. And then I realized that we have this public university program called Game Design in Berlin at the HGW, that's the university. And yeah, then I applied there and studied there, and this is also where I met the people I then eventually founded Grizzly Games with, and yeah, made our latest game, Thronefall, together.
Okay. And is Grizzly Games your only outing in the video game industry, or have you worked elsewhere?
No, it's my only real workplace, if you want to call it that. We actually founded the company while still enrolled in the program. Actually, the last two games we published, Superflight and Islanders, were both projects we did as part of our university program.
Okay.
So we kind of founded the company as a means to just publish the games we created during our program originally, and then just worked out quite well for us. So we kept doing that.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And how many people are involved in Grizzly Games?
Well, originally we've been 3 people, but then one person left, another person joined. So we've been 3 people again for Islanders, and then after Islanders, Friedemann, one of the 3 persons left, and now it's just Jonas and me. So at the moment, just a 2-person show.
Yeah, not an unusual size for an indie dev. Certainly not. Because the question there is, what is it like being a 2-man studio versus a 3-man studio?
Well, it's definitely more work, because obviously there's just one person less. Mm-hmm. But overall, I'd say it's not that different. I mean, you're clearly lacking the workforce of one person, and also I would say it's a bit harder to make good decisions, because when it's 3 people, you often end up with a situation where not all three people immediately agree on one thing. So usually there is this like kind of imbalance where maybe two people are fond of an idea and then the third person is kind of like questioning it. Hey, is this really a good idea? And then you kind of have this kind of productive discussion around it. So I guess you end up with better decisions when working with three people. When it's just two people, I guess you're more often in a situation where you just immediately agree on some idea you're hyped for. So it's a bit more difficult maybe to not get too hyped for something too early on.
I suppose. At any rate, so yeah, you have, as Grizzly Games, done a couple of games before the one we're mainly talking about today, in Islanders and Super Flight. What were these projects?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, those both have been university projects. So the way our program worked was that, of course, we had some courses as well, but then the biggest part of our program was just working on small game projects with other people that studied there. So Superflight was actually the first like real game project we did in the program in our second year, and it had pretty hard constraints. We only had 3 months. And obviously a very limited skill set back then. So it was pretty much what we could do at the time, and then we just set it as a goal for ourselves to produce something publishable in the within the constraints of the project. So you play this little wingsuiting person, and you're flying through a very blocky, endlessly generated worlds. I mean, the worlds are not endless. Each world has an end, but then if you fly to the end of the world, you just get spawned right into another world. And then you just like fly through those worlds and try to do dangerous maneuvers for which you get points. So if you, for instance, fly close to a wall or through a hole or something, you just get 1 points for how dangerous it was. And then if you crash into something, you just a little person explodes and you have to start all over again. So it's pretty simple game, but still works quite well, I'd say. Was fairly successful for our standards back then. And then the second game, Islanders, has been our third year project, and well, just by looking at the game, you can tell that we advanced our skill set quite a bit. So everything is looking a bit prettier. Game mechanics are a bit more fleshed out, and it's we tried to boil down city builders, which were like a genre we really loved, and we tried to boil it down into very accessible, short experience. So Islanders is about placing buildings on little islands, and we have this like super simple but hard to master proximity mechanic where basically all gameplay is you have an inventory full of buildings you can then place on the island. And then you get awarded points every time you place a building on the island. How much points is based on what's surrounding the building. So if you place a little lumberjack building, you get points for every tree in its surroundings. And then you can place a sawmill that gets points for every every lumberjack in the area. And so you can like build a fairly complex network of buildings that depend on each other. So it's kind of like a puzzle city building game.
And how much of that set the stage for Thronefall in terms of development skills and processes?
Yeah, I guess all the projects we did so far kind of were built on top of each other. Not necessarily technology-wise, but of course there are many soft factors, I call them, that evolved over time. So just like a general way we communicate with each other and talk about games. I think that's something that really evolved over time. So also the projects got way more complex over time. As I mentioned, Superflight was a very, very simple game. Now Thronefall, I'd say, is so far the most complex project we produce.
What would be the thing that's complicated about it? Especially given that, well, before I suppose we get into that, we should talk about what Thronefall is first.
Yeah, that would probably be a good idea. So Thronefall is a little kingdom city builder / defender, I'd call it. So it has elements from both city and base building games and also maybe tower defense. So the game loop is that during the day you can ride around your little kingdom and spend your money on building new buildings. And unlike traditional RTS or city building games, you cannot freely just place any building anywhere you want, but there are like pre-made build slots for certain buildings, and you can just decide which build slot you want to use next. So, for instance, there's a slot where you can build a little windmill or a house or barracks, whatever. So this kind of decision making is fairly simple, and you mainly like the biggest challenge is to kind of cut the edge between investments in economy and defense. So when you spend all your money during the day, the night comes, and during the night, enemies attack your little kingdom, and you try to defend it. When they destroy your castle center, the match is over and you lost. So that's the main goal, to defend your castle center. And then when you fought off the wave of enemies, the next day begins, and at the beginning of the next day, you get taxes from all your economy buildings that didn't get destroyed during the night. So you then try to just survive a set number of waves on each level.
Mm-hmm.
And after you beat the level, you unlock the next one and play through that one as well.
Yeah,
So,
I would say that this is pretty close to a tower defense game. Certainly got many of the accoutrements of that particular genre.
yeah, I think so. I think maybe the main thing that sets it apart is that you also have this economic decisions that maybe get a bit more complex than in a usual tower defense game. So you can decide to spend money to gain more money then. And then there's also like a couple of spin-off mechanics that maybe make the game a bit more complex. Like you have those little units we see on screen right now that you can command around. So we also have this RTS elements within the tower defense structure. So you cannot only build buildings that, for instance, shoot enemies. You can also like build those barracks that produce little archers, for example, and then you can like command the archers to stay at a certain position or move with you. So I would say it gets a bit more complex on the tactical side as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a bit more than your average tower defense game, but not surprising given that, well, tower defense games evolved out of RTSs originally. But with that in mind, I suppose my first question here is, what was the inspiration, or where did the idea for Thronefall come from?
Well, probably from several different places. So we started when we started prototyping for a new project. There already was this idea of having a little kingdom and kind of managing it, seeing it thrive, this was an idea that already fascinated us. And also, I think it's just something in general that is thematically really appealing to us. I mean, it's similar to Islanders, even that way. Just like having this little kind of civilization thing and seeing it prosper and flourish. I guess it's just something we really like. So that was already something we had quite early on in prototyping. But then we kind of struggled to find a way to like build a proper gameplay structure around it. That's what I mentioned earlier. It was quite hard to make good decisions as a two-person team, especially in the beginning. So we then sidetracked into something that we thought would be an amazing card game about like managing your little kingdom and stuff. Worked on that for a couple of months, scrapped it because it was absolutely no fun, and then kind of went back to the drawing board and just looked for ways to express this original feeling of having a little kingdom and seeing it thrive. And then I think we just took some inspiration from other games we really like. There's the Kingdom series by Thomas Vandenberg, maybe you know it. It's like a little pixel art side scroller where it's pretty similar actually to what Thronefall turned out to be in the end. You ride around, during the day you can spend your money at set building slots, and at night enemies attack. And we thought it would be really interesting to put this very simple game loop into the third dimension, because we felt you would then have a lot more interesting and deeper tactical choices. So yeah, I guess that's how we ended up with what Thronefall is now.
Certainly a elongated route, if nothing else, but so one that seems to be paying off, given what's been on display here. At any rate, so is there a narrative going on here?
Well, no explicit narrative, at least not yet. I mean, we will release the game in early access, so maybe at some point we are inspired to produce more explicit lore, but at the moment, maybe just kind of like elements you can piece together by just looking at it. Obviously, you are this little king or queen, ruler person, you build up this little kingdom, and then you like travel from area to area. Something you cannot do in the demo. You can do it in demo version. You have the tutorial level, which is kind of lush and like spring looking, and then you travel to the next area, which is more of this like mountainous area with pine trees and stuff. And then afterwards there's comes a desert level, and then there is an ice level. So just traverse to many different areas of your kingdom and try to make your kingdom prosper and also fend off waves of enemies. But other than that, there is no specific lore really. Okay. We leave that to the players.
Duly noted. And let's see here. You mentioned early access. What precipitated the decision to release this in an early access state?
I think because Thronefall, I mean, the games we created before were all procedurally generated, so you could quickly come up with a lot of playtime. And Thronefall is something that's more based on content, obviously, since you are playing level after level. Mm-hmm. So it actually takes some time to just produce all those levels. And we felt we were coming to a point where most of the game-based structure was finished, and you could very well play all the levels that were available. But it was still, we were not finished with it content-wise, and we thought it would be just very cool to start sharing it with the community, and also definitely hear what they have to say, just to also get like a different perspective on all of it. And so far, it has been super helpful. I mean, we haven't even released it in early access, but we had great feedback for the demo, and many people joined our Discord server and made fantastic suggestions. So I think it's definitely a way to go for us.
And yeah, if I recall, you released a demo for the Steam Summer Next Fest.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So we had a blast at Next Fest, and then we just decided to leave the demo live until we release the game into early access, so people can continue enjoying it.
Which is what we've got here on the stream. Right. How big is the demo?
Well, it consists of 2 levels. The first one is the tutorial level, the one we saw earlier, and it kind of like just teaches you the basics of the game. And then you have the second level, which we're seeing right now, where things get a bit harder and you have to think more about strategy and maybe need a few tries until you eventually beat the level. And then there's also the system of different weapons and perks you can pick before your playthrough. So you unlock those bit by bit. So if you win or lose after the game, you see this little screen where you see your progress, and then you level up eventually and unlock new perks. So that's pretty much the content of the demo. You can play those 2 levels and unlock a couple of perks and weapons. And of course, you can always try to improve your high score infinite times.
Of course. I suppose that brings up a question. Will there be leaderboards for Thronefall?
Well, there are already leaderboards for you and your Steam friends. So if your friends own the game on Steam as well, you can see your ranking in your group of friends already in the game. And we are likely to implement more global leaderboard as well. I think it's mainly an issue to make it cheat-proof, because if you would just implement a regular Steam leaderboard, it's very easy for people to mess with it, and then it kind of defies the idea of the leaderboard.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, that does make sense. And anyway, so what have been some of the suggestions that the community has given you from the demo?
Oh well, it's actually it's a lot of stuff, and also like a pretty broad range from very time consuming features like maybe a multiplayer or a co-op mode, which we agree would be fantastic to have, but we're definitely not sure if it's something we will be able to implement, to many small suggestions, and also very important, of course, bug reports. There's like many small things that we have overlooked, or maybe just edge cases that we didn't really run into during development. So that has been super helpful, and probably the only way to bring this into state that is more or less free of bugs, I'd say, at the moment. Or at least no major bugs. And then also regarding the usability, there has been much very valuable feedback. Lots of small things, really. For instance, there's now an option to toggle whether your units return to their original positions after the night is over, or whether they should stay at the position you last commanded them to be at. Just stuff like that really improves the accessibility of the game.
That's good. And yeah, I'm not surprised that the requests for like multiplayer of various sorts would be high on the list. But I couldn't say if that was ever viable, not just from a developmental resource point of view, but also this game wasn't conceived of as having multiplayer, so none of the design has taken that into account. So
yeah, it's definitely not a trivial task. I think a PvP multiplayer is absolutely no option. But what maybe would be interesting would be a co-op mode where you could defend things together. I mean, you're right. Especially during the day, it's probably just not what it's designed for, to have two people running around building things. But I guess there would be solutions for that. I suppose during the night it could be quite fun to just defend your castle together.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine would be the most viable course of action.
Yeah, but then also it's of course a huge task, and definitely cannot make any promises at this point. We really have to think about that and just take a very careful look at it and try to assess how much resources it would bind to implement that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would imagine if that co-op were in any way viable, that would be something that would be coming, let's say, after the early access period.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I think, especially for the upcoming months of the early access period, we definitely have lots of plans already. There will be more content that extends playtime, gives players more depth and more interesting decisions during playing the game. So there are lots of things we would implement before working on a co-op mode.
Indeed. Anyway, with that in mind, what is the current state of the game, or rather, how much is going to be available when it releases in early access?
At the release of the early access release on August 2nd, there will be 4 playable levels. Let me look up the exact number. I think 37 unlockable things, that'd be perks and weapons and mutators. Mutators are this kind of negative perks you can pick that make the game harder to play, but also then give you more points and experience when you successfully beat a level with mutators equipped. And I'd say to play through all of this, depending on your speed, it will probably take you between 3 and 5 hours to just do a full run of the game. And then of course you can still start trying to improve your high scores or experiment with different strategies. There's quite a bit to explore with all the different perks, and then in the end you can pick 3 perks for every run. And there are lots of emergent strategies then out of the different combinations of perks you can pick.
Indeed. One thing we should highlight are the footmen, the guard units that follow you, because those are a pretty unique aspect of this game. What sorts of followers can you recruit, and what are their advantages and disadvantages?
Yeah, I think at the moment there are in total 8 different kind of allied units you can recruit, and they are split into 2 main categories. You can build an archer hut and barracks, and the archer hut obviously produces ranged units, and the barracks produces melee units. And then there are 4 different kinds of each, and it's really a strategic decision, and also maybe one based on preference, what kind of unit you're going for. There are, for example, longbow archers just have a fairly good range, good damage output, but then are not doing anything special besides that. And then you have crossbowmen that have shorter range but a much higher damage output. So they are, for example, not as useful against flying units because they have to be quite close to them. But then, for example, say against those giant units, they are extremely useful because they can deal lots of damage very quickly. Then we have fire archers that set the ground on fire surrounding the units they attack, which are incredibly helpful in later levels where you have like swarms of little enemies that are just not very strong on their own, but because there's so many, they are quite hard to deal with. And those fire archers, you can like target many of them at the same time, which is very useful. We have the spearmen that are able to slow down fast units. We have berserks that just go and target very high health units, which is very neat if you like to like single out those catapults or rams in a big group of enemies. Yeah, they're just I think many different strategic options actually.
And how tricky was it to balance all of that?
Well, I'd say it's still a process, an ongoing process. Also, getting all this feedback from players is super helpful, of course, regarding that. But yeah, it's definitely quite a difficult process. Of course, you don't get it right at the first time. You just have to come up with a general idea, then play it again, and then eventually you just end up with something that works, I guess. It's the usual process.
Indeed. And shifting a bit, you've mentioned that there are different environments, like there's going to be a snow level and a desert level. And I'm wondering, does that impact anything, or is that just a flavor of landscape?
No, it definitely impacts how the game plays. So that's kind of like a basic rule we set for ourselves, that we want to introduce new elements of gameplay with every new level. We don't want to produce just more of the same, but we really want to keep it interesting. So yeah, with each level there are some new concepts that get introduced. For example, with the level after the one we're currently seeing, it's a kind of like desert, rocky, mountainous level thing. It has many different height areas. So like the current level we're seeing, all the play areas flat, and then on the new level you have different height levels, which can make a big difference when defending. So you can like put your archers on top of some ledge and let them shoot down in the path below, stuff like that. And also the level gets a lot larger, and you don't see all of your kingdom on the screen all the time. So you kind of have to divert your attention between different ongoing battles. Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but definitely with every new level, there are new elements of gameplay introduced.
Right. And speaking of such things, so what is the roadmap for the early access journey of Thronefall here?
To be honest, there is no fixed roadmap. We have never released the game in early access before, so we're kind of still in the process of getting used to the whole thing and figuring out how to effectively work with the community, figuring out where exactly we want to take Thronefall. So we made sure that what we release on August 2nd is already a version of the game that is complete in itself, I'd say. So it's not lacking any crucial feature. It should be much fun to play on its own, and also I'd say fair deal for the price point. And then we really want to extend on the content of the game, but we also don't want to clinch to fixed roadmap, but we rather want to see how's the reception of the game, what is the community feeling, is the game lacking, and then really focus on working together with the community on new features. But I guess it's safe to say that there will be definitely some new levels that extend the playtime and the game content.
Okay. And do you have a rough idea of how long the early access period is going to last?
Yeah, well, it also depends on I would say how well how well the game works. To be honest, like if many people are playing it and we have a huge demand for new features and content, we maybe think about extending it for a longer time even. But originally we planned to have it around 6 months roughly, maybe a bit longer.
Okay. Imagine that might be a fair bit of time, especially if you're content building. With that in mind, what is going to be the price point of Thronefall when it releases?
It will be $6.99 in most not in most currencies. It really depends on the area you are in, but in the US it will be $6.99. In Europe, I think €6.99 as well.
Okay.
And then look, just proportionally translates into any other currency out there.
Duly noted. And will that price shift as the early access process goes forward? And will this game increase in price when it reaches 1.0?
Yes, that's very likely. Since we don't have a fixed roadmap as of now, I can't say how much the price will increase, but we definitely plan to increase it when the content of the game increases. So if there are, say, just as an example, if there are 2 new levels, for example, I guess we would probably raise the price point a little bit to just reflect that and like be fair to the people that already bought the game.
Makes sense. And let me see here. So, is this game Windows only, or are there builds for Mac and Linux?
At the moment, it is Windows only, but I'm working hard on making it available for Mac as well, since I actually am developing on a Mac. So it would be nice to be able to play the game on my Mac as well. It's mostly that the deployment process on macOS is a bit more time consuming than it is on Windows. So yeah, it's something I'm on right now, and I hope to get it done by release. So that is the best case scenario. It will release with the Mac version as well.
Okay.
Maybe it's something that will happen a bit after the release on August 2nd, but I give my best. And Linux is probably, I don't think it's planned at the time.
Okay. And will this game be coming to other storefronts like GOG or the Epic Game Store?
Definitely not on the release on August 2nd, but we haven't thought about it any further. So something that might be something that happens in the future, maybe not.
Okay.
I can't say at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, clearly PC Steam is the focus right now, but I am wondering if you've given any thought to porting this to like either consoles or mobile.
I think we definitely designed the whole game with different platforms in mind. So it already has full controller support. So it should be fairly easy to port on every console, at least from the user experience side. And I'm actually enjoying it a lot on the Steam Deck, so I would figure it would also be a good fit for the Switch, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will definitely be something we will be exploring in future, but we don't have any set plans for it as of now.
Okay. Right. So, I think I've run through my set of questions. We'll see if my colleagues here have anything further for you.
I think I'm good.
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Paul, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today to talk about Thronefall. It's a very interesting looking game, and I look forward to seeing how it develops over the course of its early access journey. And wish you luck in its further development.
Yeah, it has been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. Right. So the game is Thronefall. It's currently planned for release on August 2nd for a price of $7.99.
$6.99.
Sorry, $6.99. Sorry.
No worries.
For $6.99. There is a demo if you want to try before you buy, and you can also wish list it to remind you that it comes out. And as always, if you've enjoyed this interview today, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when we go live in the future. And yeah, that'll be about do it for this installment of Fragments Silicon. Be sure to tune in next time, which will be as of this broadcast / recording, however you want to frame it, which will be tonight as we have a multiplayer session of the game Perfect Partner planned. So look for that. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.